we are going off to Singapore, where the central bank is proposing new ways to design open, interoperable networks for tokenized digital assets. The initiative is called Project Guardian, and it has enlisted 11 institutions to test tokenization across financial assets. Who's participating in the pilot? Well, some big banking giants like HSBC, Standard Chartered, and Citi are all involved. Zach, gonna toss this one off to you. It seems like Singapore is making yet another move forward while we kind of remain stagnant here in the US. What do you think?
Yeah. And the banks, look at all those banks involved. They're all like, oh man, the tokenization of everything. It's happening. RWAs, let's do this thing. There's like operational efficiencies to settling things on blockchains. And I think a lot of the banking and enterprise conversations that emerged back in 2018 kind of didn't really go away, right? Like they've just been sort of simmering in the background, and all these enterprise use cases, especially with banking and the tokenization of quote real world assets, is something that I think we're seeing a lot of sort of like interesting things pop up about all of a sudden. So yeah, certainly it's situated in Singapore, which is vying, I think, to be one of the big crypto capitals in Asia. And certainly it's with some banks, Standard Chartered, you mentioned others, who've been toying around with this crypto stuff for a while. And if not directly the crypto stuff, then certainly the blockchain stuff that can make the settlement and transfer of funds quicker, more efficient, more transparent. So the idea that this is being worked with in consult with the Monetary Authority of Singapore suggests that there is momentum around these banking kind of consortiums that want to put blockchain to work in a context that works for them. I think we could kind of like celebrated, the death of enterprise blockchain, like enterprise blockchain is finally dead. But in reality, it kind of like went under a rock, and certainly within these banking giants was sort of fostered and to grow into something that was useful. So we're seeing maybe some fruits of that come to bear. But again, I'm also sort of have a little bit of PTSD from seeing a lot of these early announcements that didn't really seem to materialize into much over the last few years. So yeah, this is, somewhat exciting that, again, the tokenization of real world assets is being championed by big banking players. We'll see if it becomes a significant part of their technology stack, or if it's just sort of a doodad that's out there that they, also have in their portfolio. That's obviously time will tell. But I'll toss it to Will. What do you think?
Yeah, Chris Bernensky, who's like a well-trod founder in the space, and VC, had a tweet about this actually yesterday, which was completely different from the story, but same point, was that like a lot of these enterprise blockchain use cases, they still exist. And his point in tweet was like, in 10 years, we're going to have these things. No one's even going to think different about them. Like they're going to be around. And oftentimes, like I think we just look at the headlines every day in the show and we're like, it's bullish, it's bearish. We have a take on it. And then we just set aside till the next time the story pops up. But over the long run, there are people who are really interested in seeing if these things work. And they're still working on them. Like I'm particularly a little bearish on them. I just don't think they make a lot of sense. But that doesn't mean that somewhat different experiences isn't going to support them. And I think a country like Singapore, or a country that is like a little more focused on like traditional means for blockchain and crypto and TradFi to intertwine, is it going to be super bullish on this, right? Like this probably makes sense to them. I'm curious to see how this stuff with Singapore works out. Like I feel like they've always been a bellwether for crypto in this space. This whole article sort of talks about how it's like a little bit of a bearish take on crypto, and the MAS has been a little bit bearish on crypto, but I'm not sure I necessarily agree with that actually. So we'll see what ends up happening there. I'll throw it back to Jen.
Yeah, I just want to clarify at the top of the segment, I said it's been stagnant here in the U.S. I want to clarify this is being led by the central bank. And I think that's what the interesting part is here. Banks in the U.S. have definitely been exploring technology like this. The article said that even though the central bank is no fan of the crypto ecosystem, it's committed to promoting the technologies of the industry to improve existing traditional financial systems. I think that's really interesting, right? They're not a fan of the crypto ecosystem, but they see the value in the technology. Last week, Will, when you weren't on the show, we spoke about another project that's being spearheaded by the central bank in Singapore, along with the IMF, Bank of Italia, I believe also Bank of Korea, and they're looking at programmable money for business use cases like Amazon. And so I think these conversations are conversations that need to be had, and it will be really interesting to see how Singapore progresses and how other countries kind of watch them as a use case and maybe take different parts of these studies and implement them in their own jurisdictions. So I think this is cool.